Alright, this is part 2 of our video on growth psychology and how that it has become, or it is, the backbone of humanistic learning theory and holistic learning theory. And we're going to focus on Carl Rogers today. And Rogers is of the belief, his theory, along with others, is that the self knows all. It is the wizard within. The self is that part found within the psyche. That organizing part of our psyche that organizes the unconscious and conscious self. Sometimes this is referred to our higher self. Different religious traditions have different names for the self within. But all the answers are found within. So in Rogerian therapy, you'll have psychologists saying things like, well, what do you think? Go on, tell me more about that, with the idea of turning thoughts to the self who has all the answers within. So the real self, your true self, is what you will evolve to if everything goes right, if you are allowed to self-actualize. And we will unpack that term in just a minute. That is the real self, the blueprint for your highest state, for what you may become. Now, this is different from the ideal self. Now, ideal is not a good thing here. The ideal self are those ideals thrust upon you by society or expectation. That can get in the way of self-actualizing or reaching your full potential, from becoming who you want to be. And there you see another view of the psyche, the self, and we'll talk about universal unconscious at another time. But ego consciousness, ego does not mean pride. It means what you are aware of, what you are thinking about. And here is the self in the unconscious, and expanding consciousness often means expanding this part, so you're aware of more parts of yourself and ultimately finding self. This is the hero's journey, the journey within, but that's another story. Incongruity between who you want to be and what others expect you to be can get in the way of self-actualization. It stymies this urge and can lead to neurosis. Self-actualization. You can't other-actualize, meaning that this is a journey that has to be taken by yourself. We can create the conditions as parents and teachers where students are better able to self-actualize, but ultimately the journey towards self-actualization is one taken by one's self. So you access the self not through the telling of another person, but through creativity and through finding. That's the inner journey, by being directed back to what you think. Carl Rogers, how to become a fully functioning person. Now, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing, being all that you can be? Don't we want humans to become, to reach their full capacity? So on becoming a person, a healthy person is a process, a direction, not a state of being. A healthy person is not a state, but a process of becoming. Self-actualization is never a finished product. One is always self-actualizing. Self-actualizing is not for sissies. It can be, discovering who you are, a painful and difficult process. You are testing and stretching, prodding all parts of your personality, launching fully into the stream of life, exploring, trying things, sometimes failing, immersing yourself in the full range of human emotions and experiences. The self-actualizing person feels far more deeply than the non-actualizing person. And this striving for self-actualization, the byproduct of this is happiness. Self-actualizing people lead lives that are enriching, challenging, and meaningful. Self-actualizing people are themselves, their true selves. They don't have to hide behind their masks or live their lives based on the expectations of other people. They are free of those expectations imposed externally by parents, by society. The self is the master of the personality. 5 characteristics of the fully functioning person. And don't we want this in education? Yes, we do. We want this both for yourself, the teacher, and for your students. The best preparation for becoming a good teacher is becoming a good person. Openness to experience. No inhibiting conditions. You'll feel free to experience all feelings and attitudes and stuff. You're not defensive. You're not saying, oh, I'm not going to try that, because you are open to new experiences. Existential living. You're not stuck in the past. You're not living for the future. You exist in the moment. The only moment is now. The only place is here. This is all that exists. You don't hang on to those old predictable patterns or things that happen. You trust in one's own organism. That means you listen within. You know, you have this intuitive sense of knowing that your true self will lead you to the right answers. Intuition is a sense of knowing, all right? Your intuitive self does not rely just on reason or logic to know the world, but goes beyond logic. You have a sense of freedom in that you feel truly free to make choices and decisions without inhibitions. Our students need to make choices. Our teachers need to make choices. As people, we need to make choices without inhibition. You live your lives the way you want to. You don't seek the approval. You don't need the approval of others. And the 5th characterization is creativity, the highest form of psychological help. Now, this doesn't always mean artistic creativity. There is teaching creativity. There is living creativity, personal creativity. That means you're growing, you're changing, you're evolving. You are developing and creating yourself. All right? So 5 characteristics of fully functioning people. We could say fully functioning students, fully functioning teachers. This has been part 2, growth psychology.